everyone. I am Rachel with the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. I hope everyone is staying safe and warm if you're in a cold place like I am. We are so excited to have Erica Smith running in North Carolina, 2nd Congressional District, here with us this evening. So really quick, folks, if everyone could actually, we've been doing something new to try and feel more togetherness. So if folks quickly want to unmute themselves, and we can all say hello to Erica, and we can all say hello to each other. So can everyone unmute themselves and just give a big hello?
Hello, Erica.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, feel a little bit more like we're together. So perfect. So we will dig in shortly. Folks, if you feel comfortable, for those who don't yet, please go ahead and turn on your camera. We have a bunch of folks that have already submitted questions in the queue. We'll also be taking live questions. Erica is eager to dig into those. And feel free to send your question at any point in the chat box. My colleague Nick will get back to you when we have a when we're ready to go to you. You can send your question at any point in the chat, and please bear with us. We're going to try and sneak in as many questions as we can, but please bear with me and forgive me in advance if I can't get to your question, but we'll do our best. And then last programmatic note, we really purposely designed these events to not charge for them. We really think it's important for you to hear from the candidate and hear her story and her path to victory, and her successes and challenges thus far, and the dynamics of her district and what's happening on the ground there, and then decide if you're inspired and want to chip in. So with that, please consider, if you're inspired by what you hear from Erica tonight, we are, so I hope you will be too, and chip in if you can. We'll make that very easy. We'll throw the donate link in the chat box a few times throughout the event for you to consider. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to our co-founder, Dr. Stephanie Taylor. Stephanie?
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you to everybody for joining our call tonight. I am so thrilled to introduce you to Erica Smith, who's running for Congress in North Carolina's 2nd Congressional District. This is a Democratic-leaning district. It's open because of the retirement of the current Congressman, G.K. Butterfield. And the first time I talked to Erica, I was immediately drawn to her way of talking about politics and her understanding of what working people in this country need, from rural broadband to support for family farmers, to universal health care, to rebuilding unions. And she talks about her campaign as a moral movement, which I really appreciate, because being a progressive is all about morality. It's about doing good for our earth and our fellow humans. It's about understanding that we are all in this together and we rise together. And this message connects with Democrats, it connects with rural independents, and even Trump voters. And Erica talks about faith, she talks about being a good neighbor, about fixing the road that's broken. And she breaks down the conversation, especially on climate, into pieces that address the needs of her district, like farms that are threatened by the rising sea level on the coast, sustainable agriculture, and the need for good paying jobs in solar and wind. So Erica grew up in rural North Carolina. She returned home to run for the North Carolina Senate in 2014. And in that race, she unseated a longtime Democratic incumbent who had sold out to the payday loan industry. And that victory was a huge upset. And now her victory in this congressional race would send a national message. The progressives can win in rural areas. She's not just running for office, she's forging a trail for future candidates, and I can't wait for you to hear from her. So with that, let me extend a very warm welcome to Erica Smith.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Stephanie, we joke because she is my political soulmate, but I am so grateful for the PCCC. You all were with me on day one when I pivoted out of the U.S. Senate race and we launched our bid to replace Congressman G.K. Butterfield. So I am so indebted to you. I am just so honored, and I'm so grateful that so many of you are joining us tonight for this discussion. I want to take a few minutes to introduce myself and let you know my path to where I am today. But I just wanted to first thank PCCC. You empowered us to build some amazing momentum around this race. Around right now is currently the only swing district in North Carolina. We know it's a top 5 district in the nation. But my name is Erica Smith. I come from a family of 6 children, and my dad was in the Air Force. My mother, we call her the domestic engineer. She did everything after raising us. You know, she sewed our clothes, she cooked all of our food, we worked on the farm. And one thing that my dad instilled in me very early on was that it was 5 girls and 1 boy. My brother is the youngest. My dad wanted a boy so bad. And I said, that's okay, Dad. You had to put up with 5 girls first. And I am an identical twin. And so the only way to tell us apart is I have a mole. But so I'm just very excited about the path that has led me here. I come from very humble beginnings. And so when I think about the reason why I'm running and running in this district, the 2nd Congressional District in North Carolina, I think about what this district has meant for me. I've spent 3 terms in the North Carolina State Senate, and while in the State Senate, I took on those battles. I fought to raise the age. North Carolina was one of the last states to raise the age for juveniles. I fought to raise the wage, raise the minimum wage. I fought to expand Medicaid, sponsor legislation to expand Medicaid, to end gerrymandering. And I took on racial injustice, working to eliminate cash bail and secure investments for communities that have been for too long left behind and underinvested in. This race is deeply personal for me. When I was a little girl growing up in Northampton County on my family's farm, I watched the generations, my parents and my grandparents, fight to hold on to the family farm. This community was there for me when we had those financial struggles. They were some of the hardest days of my life. My community was there for me when I relocated back to Northampton County in 2001, when my dad had early onset of dementia, and he had served us and served his country well. We wanted to make sure Dad could live out his golden ages at home. But when I relocated and my dad was sick and ultimately passed away, this community was there for me. And in 2012, when I lost my 5-year-old son, he was born medically fragile, and we had to navigate a broken healthcare system. Those were some of the hardest days of my life, but this community was there for me. And now this community is under attack. We have a Republican gerrymander that's trying to steal the voices of Black and brown people in this community. My community is under attack from partisan gerrymandering, corporations that are hollowing out our communities and polluting our air and closing our rural hospitals. This community was there for me, so now I want to be there for my community. After Congressman G.K. Butterfield announced that he was going to be stepping down, I knew somebody had to step up. And it couldn't be just anyone. It had to be someone who was going to fight for working families, fight for farmers, fight for this rural community, fight for the people who have been left behind and so disenfranchised. So I raised my hand to step up to fill that void. This is a district that I know well, and this district knows me. I represented this district in 17 counties. 9 of them I represented as a state senator, as a school board member, as a party officer, getting Democrats elected up and down the ticket all over the state for 12 years. I put in significant work here. I know this community. I know the struggles. I not only know the struggles, I myself have lived the struggles hand in hand with my neighbors in this community. I understand where we are. I understand the challenges that we're facing. And I also understand the kind of representation that we need. And we need that representation right now. I know this community, the community loves me. And I am so excited about our opportunity that we have together with the support of each and every one of you to tell a new story for rural America, to tell a new story about a progressive rural Democrat. People across my district deserve more. They deserve more than $1 general store economy and a GoFundMe healthcare system. We deserve more. People across my district deserve to have a rural New Deal. A New Deal that secures universal free broadband for everyone, an economy that takes on corporations and corporate monopolies, an economy that works for workers, and that includes respecting the dignity of work by raising the minimum wage. And also, we deserve good paying jobs. We deserve clean energy. We deserve union jobs. We're going to make these towns that our children don't need to move away from, but are excited to move home to and raise their families in. We're going to fight hard as the front runner right now. And I'm really excited about that. I am the front runner in this race. I am the only pro-choice Democrat who is running in this race. With the threats against Roe v. Wade going on under attack all over this nation, and what will be a likely ripping away of our reproductive health care by the courts, we need someone who's going to champion that issue. I'm running against two anti-choice Democrats, absolutely ridiculous in this day and age. As the GOP, my likely GOP opponent, Sandy Smith, is a January 6th insurrectionist who does not deserve to run. And by our North Carolina Constitution, she's going to be held accountable. And if the Constitution doesn't hold her accountable, we will certainly look forward to defeating her in November. We cannot afford to lose this race. This seat has been held by a Democrat since 1882. But we can win, and this is how we're going to win. We can't afford to lose this race, and by energizing our base with bold transformational policies that are going to actually make a difference, create true structural change that everyone is in this district has really been waiting on someone to champion for decades. And I'm looking forward to leading the charge. We're going to broaden our coalition with aggressive organizing, and we're rejecting corporate politicians and a broken DC status quo with the help of all of you. I am the only one in this race who is taking on the No Corporate Money pledge, and I am looking forward to showing what grassroots donors can do. When we all come together and work and fight, we can accomplish great things. So I will end with this. I want to ask you a few questions as I close up my presentation of who I am, and I look forward to answering your questions. But my ask of you is, do you want an America that invests in its workers and that pays its teachers what they're worth? Do you want an America that dismantles systemic racism and builds systems of equity instead? Do you want an America that is fed by family farms and not corporate farms? An America where everyone is guaranteed broadband, health care, a living wage, clean air, clean water, and a roof over their head? Do you want an America where your block is not your blessing and your zip code is not your destiny, that everyone can aspire and achieve that American dream? Well, if that's the America that you want, well, you can't even spell America without Erica. Please go learn more about me at my website, ericaforus.com. I'm one of us for all of us. I am one of us who will fight for us, and I am one of us who will champion our causes. Thank you for allowing me to present who I am.
Cheers to all of that. And I'm going to speak on behalf of all of us that yes, we do. We all, I think I can say safely, yes, we do all want that and you. So we have a bunch of questions rolling in. So we're going to kick it off with our friend, Mr. Phil Villers, joining us from Concord, Massachusetts. Phil, what is your question for Erica?
Hi, Erica.
Phil.
What you said made a lot of sense to me. Let me drill down on a particular area that I've been working on for 40 years, which is quality, affordable healthcare on an equitable basis for everybody. And there's a big difference between theoretical and actual. Rural areas do not have that by a country mile.
Yes.
What are you going to try and do about it?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that, Phil. Nice to meet you. When people often, they're well-intentioned, but when they talk about healthcare, they talk about access. But that word becomes weaponized against us when folks say, well, the closest hospital may be an hour away. And you look at it, if you have a heart attack, what that means to someone who lives too far from a rural hospital for that emergency care to be given when they need it the most. When you live that far away, yes, you have access, But is that truly access to affordable healthcare? And it's not. It's absolutely not. What we need is healthcare, not just access to healthcare. We actually need the healthcare. Right now, we have a health insurance industry. We do not have a healthcare industry. I've had to navigate a broken healthcare system. When my son was born medically fragile at 1 pound, 1/2 ounce, I had pregnancy-induced hypertension, and we all know the atrocious rates of Black women's maternal mortality in this nation, and particularly in North Carolina, which is almost double the average. But despite having good employer-based healthcare, I brought Elias home after 6 months of being in the NICU. And my good employer-based healthcare program gave me 4 hours of nursing care with a child who was medically fragile, who was now 4 pounds and who had a tracheostomy. I had to drive 1.5 hours to Duke Children's Hospital in Durham, which is 1.5 hours from me, 90 miles. I would have to drive there just to access a physical therapist and an occupational therapist for him to be able to converse with us and learn American Sign Language and be able to be empowered to be, to have the healthcare that he needed, but also for him to improve his quality of life. So in asking your question, what am I going to do about real access to quality, affordable, and equitable healthcare? We need to understand that healthcare should not be centered around profits. It's a human right. The profit margins of rural hospitals and health centers shouldn't be looked at in the same way as a for-profit business. So it's a matter of life and death. So we have to take out the for-profit. For me, the only way to go is Medicare for all. I can see now the limitations of improving on the Affordable Care Act, but with Medicare for all, we can take out the profits. We can retrain those who are displaced in the insurance industry, and we can truly provide health care to everyone. We'll have a better control of the prescription drugs. And I know the medical equipment that my son needed, even though we almost went bankrupt, we had to get rid of every asset just to qualify for Medicaid Cap C. My son was finally able to get 8 hours of nursing care for his challenges, and I could work an 8-hour day job as a teacher. But I had to get a part-time job because even after he qualified for Medicaid Cap C, it did not pay for the humidifiers, the nosies that went over his tracheostomy. So imagine having an infant, a toddler, a 6-month-old with a tracheostomy that is completely open to any foreign object. So I got a part-time job at an alternative school. I taught from 7 o'clock in the morning to 3:30 in the regular ed program. And then I taught in the alternative school from 4 o'clock to 7:30, getting home at 8 o'clock every night. I missed so much time of my son's life. It was incredibly stressful for us. And the only good thing about that is the students that I taught in the alternative school, they had 100% pass rates. It's just as well as the students that I had in the regular ed program. But navigating that broken system and almost going bankrupt and still having to work part-time jobs and work, upwards of 60 to 80 hours a week just to provide life-saving care for my child. I don't want any other family to have to go through that. Gone are the days. Gone are those days where family goes bankrupt because someone gets sick. For me, the solution and how we provide equitable health care is to promote Medicare and fight for Medicare for all. Thank you for the question.
Thank you,
Thank
Phil.
you.
Erica, thank you, Phil. And Erica, thank you for sharing that story with us. Up next, we're going to hear from our friend joining us from New York, head of the Patriarch Millionaires, Mr. Morris Pearl. Morris, can you unmute yourself and ask her your question, please?
Hi, great to hear from you and very enthusiastic. I wrote the book, Tax the Rich. So I was just wondering if Tax the Rich is part of the what you're campaigning on in North Carolina there.
Well, I have not read the book, but I will read the book. And I have a very amazing team. And one of my team members, and I believe he's on this call, Morris, very much has aligned our policies, and we have always come from the location that the wealthy needs to pay their fair share. It makes no sense in the world that the wealthiest families pay less in taxes than 50% of working folks in this nation under the 2017 Trump's Tax and Spend Act. So I do believe that the wealthy has to pay their fair share. And even if we close the tax loopholes, that will go a long way to providing these much needed human capital investments like community college, free community college, elevating children out of poverty through continuing the child care tax credit. But yes, definitely, I will make sure I read the book, but I have a very competent staff who is very committed to helping us as we are drafting policy to make sure that includes taxing the wealthy and making sure they pay their fair share.
Thank you, Morris. Erica, thank you. And we will get you a copy of the book Morris generously offered. Okay, up next, we have Jacqueline. Miss Jacqueline Friend, can you please go ahead and unmute yourself, Jacqueline, and ask Erica your question, please.
Hi, Erica. I wanted to
And
know.
how are you?
Thank you. I'm great. And how are you doing?
This
This is exciting, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
I would like to know your opinion of demand justice and adding 4 Supreme Court justices to the.
Okay, I was, let me tell you 2 quick things. I was in the US Senate race from March of last year until November. And I was the only Democrat who was firm and emphatical from day one. We have to expand the court. And for me, it is not packing the court, it's unpacking the court. And that is why we need to expand it. At one point in our nation's history, we had 10, 11 Supreme Court justices. And with the extreme slant and bias of the current court, the only way we're going to get equality and justice in this nation is if we expand this very, very conservative court. And one other thing that I'd like to share, I should have mentioned this early. District 2 is a district that when I ran in 2020 for US Senate, I did not win the primary with Cal Cunningham, but I won this district. So every time I've been on the ballot, I have won. And my record is clear. Even as a 3-term state senator, I fought to expand the court. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Jacqueline, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the question. Okay, up next, we're gonna switch it up a little bit and take some questions for folks from folks joining us online. So up next, Erica, we have Sarah joining us from Miami, Florida. Can you talk about some of the climate injustices that are maybe unique to your district?
Oh, absolutely. My district has Warren County. Warren County is the birthplace. Warren County, North Carolina is the birthplace of the environmental justice movement. It was in Warren County where they had the toxic PCB dumping along the highways all across North Carolina, but particularly in this high minority county and community. Where I live neighbors Warren County. And that's when I first developed my political consciousness. And I developed that political consciousness when an older family member took me to the marches and the rally in 82 and 83 and 84. And I'm dating myself now. But it was when I knew how critical that fight was, particularly to marginalized communities who are very much the ones who are most near these toxic, polluting corporations. Some of the battles that I have taken on specifically to North Carolina and to this district is fighting to block the Atlantic Coast Pipeline that was going to allow drilling and fracking in Virginia and then bring that that natural gas down through North Carolina with this pumping station, this substation being in Northampton County. I took on that fight. I was very instrumental in organizing a group in our county. And we formed an alliance. We beat back on these, even if it was a line landfill, still unlined landfills, line landfills. We took on the fight because it's not fair to dump that coal ash in our backyard when none of these people benefited from the energy generated from the burning of the coal ash. So we simply led our movement and we told them to take their ashes somewhere else. And so many of the fights that I've led, that earned me a distinction. I've always fought for clean air and clean water, taking on Gen X, and I was on the the General Assembly Committee that took on Keymoors for their contamination of the water in North Carolina, particularly in the Cape Fear River and Cape Fear area, affecting several of our military bases, but the Wilmington area. And so I fought for appropriations for our Department of Environmental Quality and fighting for DEQ to have the budget and to have the technology so that they can start screening these emerging compounds. Another fight that I'm taking on with Stand with Forests, we took on this entity in Northampton County. It's in Viva, and they do wood pellets. They do wood pellets for burning, and they ship it to Europe. So that's something, that's another part of my file work on protecting the environment. And I am just the recent chair, the North Carolina chair on the Climate Action Power. And we went through the 2020 election cycle and currently doing some things now to make sure that we can stay in the forefront of fighting for those issues. Much of my work has earned me distinctions. I took on the GOP led General Assembly when they tried to continue to restrict wind development and put in place a wind moratorium. I was the sole Democrat who took on that fight, and we have a successful Amazon wind farm off the coast. I also am a part of a movement that's banning fracking and offshore drilling. So that distinction earned me the Senator of the Year by the League of Conservation Voters, my second term in the state Senate, and Senator of the Year by the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association. So thank you for that question. And I hope that shares with you some of the work that I'm doing around that. I represent Princeville in Edgecombe County, North Carolina. That is part of a district, part of this congressional district, but I represented that county when I was in the state Senate. Princeville is the first town incorporated by freed slaves. Princeville is also the location of devastating storms that have flooded that town. These 100-year, 500-year floods that actually come around every 2 years. We had Hurricane Matthew in 2016. I did a lot of work around promoting the sustainable agriculture, but also looking at flood mitigation. Because this is agriculture is our #1 business in North Carolina, we have a lot of hog farms. At one point, we had more pigs than we had people in North Carolina, which is sad. And so there was many times, often, whenever these towns in areas would flood, there was a lot of contamination from the hog ponds and the waste ponds flooding over and contaminating the water. So I was on a committee in the General Assembly who fought hard for storm mitigation, but also holding these farmers and these corporate farms accountable and making sure they put mitigation in place so that people are not further continue to be damaged when we have these floods that are coming every 2 years. And that's not an exhaustive list of the work, environment and taking on climate action. I have an advantage in this race again, because as an engineer, I actually believe in science. And so that's one of the other distinctions besides being the only pro-choice Democrat. I have been a firm champion of taking climate action and taking bold action and doing it now. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, up next, we're going to sneak in one more question. Miss Amy Bowden. Amy, thank you for joining us. Amy, can you go ahead and unmute yourself, please, and ask Erica your question? Amy Bowden, please.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel, for hosting us. And Erica, it's very, very, very lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So glad my daughter encouraged me to join tonight so I could get to meet such a wonderful candidate and a wonderful woman. So it's a very simple question. I'm just wondering, like, with all the names that are floating out there for Biden's potential Supreme Court nominations, do you have a particular favorite in that slate of candidates or any that have not yet been named?
All of the women that have made the list are just amazing. They're quite accomplished. They have done a whole lot of work. I can't say that I have a particular favorite, but I would hope it will be a nominee who will take on corporate PAC and corporations who are spending too much money in elections. We should not be giving corporations personhood. So any one of the 8 to 10 that have been who have made the list and that have whose names have been circulating, the one in DC, the one in South Carolina. But at the end of the day, I just support the nominee, the potential nominee who's going to take on corporations.
Right. I mean, it does, I agree with Erica. It does seem like an incredibly impressive slate of potential candidates. I just didn't know whether you had any connection to any of the women who have so far been named.
No, but I'm not sure if this person has been named, but I've heard her name listed in several of the articles. And I have a bias for Justice Anita Earls. She's just amazing. She's done so much work around combating voter suppression and giving voters access in North Carolina. And I'm not sure if she has been selected to be vetted, but I've heard her name in the news, and I would have a bias toward her just because I know her work and I've worked with her for years in North Carolina, and she's always been on the right side of the issues.
Right. Thank you. And it's been really wonderful meeting you tonight.
Thank you, Amy.
As
Thank you for
well.
joining. And I'm so glad your daughter encouraged you to join us. Thank you. Erica, thank you. Okay, I want to be respectful of everyone's busy schedules these days, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to our co-founder, Stephanie Taylor, for a few last thoughts that she'd like to share, maybe a final question.
Sure. Well, thank you to everyone for these great questions. Thank you to Erica for your thoughtful answers. And I really do hope that everybody on this call saw why we need Erica in Congress. And so please do chip into this race if you have a chance. As Erica said, she doesn't take corporate PAC money and every dollar counts. Erica, I do have one last question for you, which is, how will the money that you are raising right now help you win? Can you talk to us a little bit about where you're putting the dollars right now and why progressives should invest in this race right now?
Well, this congressional district, which is formerly Congressional District 1, that represented by Congressman G.K. Butterfield, is one of the 15th most impoverished districts in this entire nation. And so I know that it is an uphill battle. That's why we need progressives all over the country to look at investing in this race. Small dollar donations, grassroots donors, we really do have the power when we come together. But if I'm looking at the challenge of winning this district, it will be overcoming a tough political climate by getting our message out and energizing our base. The one way to energize our base is to have an aggressive door knocking campaign, canvassing campaign, voter education. And that's what we're doing now with the money that's invested in this race. We are organizing all over the district. We've started doing our phone banking and canvassing and getting volunteers to come out. And I have to share this with you. Rural districts are really unique in that they have to see signs. And I know a lot of people say, well, signs do not vote, people do. But in a rural area, signs are so important when you don't have a lot of internet connectivity. There are 3 different media markets for this district because geographically it's large, it's across the Virginia border. So we have a Virginia station, we have a station down in Greenville, and then in Wake, Durham area. And the Wake Durham area TV market is one of the most expensive. So the money that we're getting in is totally devoted to organizing, generating, firing up our base, expanding our electorate, doing exactly what the women did in Georgia with Stacey Abrams and the 5 Black women with the New Georgia Project. It is about expanding the electorate so we can get the votes that we need to win this district. Thank you for that question.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thank you, Erica. All right, folks. So if you can chip in, please do. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us tonight. Let's close things how we open things. Can everyone unmute themselves and let's just all give each other a warm goodbye and see you next time.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Bye, everyone. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
Erica. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you next Thursday.
Thanks, Erica.
luck. I was
Thank
very
you.
moved. Thank you.
Oh, yay. Thank you. Bye, Phil. Bye, Morris. Bye, Amy.
Bye-bye. Bye, Rachel. Good job.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye, folks. Bye, Kathleen. Bye, everyone. Bye, Arlene. Okay. Good night, everyone. Bye.